After years of holding back, Bishop Joel Tudman has finally decided to speak his truth. And what he revealed shocked everyone listening. His powerful message isn't about anger, it's about strength, faith, and redemption. What if I told you that a rising pastor, once publicly anointed as the next leader of a megachurch, was suddenly removed from his position without a single word of explanation? In the next few minutes, you're going to see how what started as a celebration of leadership and legacy spiraled into one of the most shocking controversies the church world has seen in years. Stay with me, because the real story isn't what they said, it's what they refused to say. Bishop Joel Tudman wasn't just another preacher, he was a force. Known for his fire-filled sermons, his deep compassion, and his powerful role at the Potter's House in Dallas, Tudman had built a reputation as one of the most dynamic voices in modern ministry, a man who could move both hearts and crowds with a single word. So when word broke that his position had been quietly revoked, the question that echoed across pulpits, pews, and social media was simple: what really happened behind those church doors? But lately, something has changed. The same calm confidence that once surrounded Bishop Joel Tudman has been replaced by a cloud of uncertainty. Rumors are swirling, social media is buzzing, and across the faith community, one question is echoing louder than ever: what's really going on with Bishop Tudman? For months, quiet whispers have drifted through church circles, talk of internal shifts at the Potter's House, unexpected leadership realignments, and a mysterious announcement said to be in the works. Some believe Tudman has been quietly preparing for a new chapter, a season of independence, a bold step to his own calling. But others say this story runs deeper. They claim there's tension beneath the surface, unseen conflicts, unspoken decisions, and a possible power struggle that could change the direction of his ministry forever. Whatever the truth is, one thing's for sure: something major is happening behind those doors, and the world is about to find out. In this video, we're pulling back the curtain on everything: what Bishop Joel Tudman has finally revealed, what insiders are whispering about the sudden shift, and how this moment could redefine the future of his ministry and his legacy under the mentorship of Bishop T.D. Jakes. We're breaking it all down: the timeline of events, the emotional reactions, and that one unforgettable message Bishop Tudman delivered that moved his congregation to tears. But stay with me, because this goes far beyond one man and one church. By the end of this video, we'll explore how this announcement is shaking the foundations of the modern church world, and why it has pastors, followers, and believers everywhere asking the same question: is this the beginning of a new era, or the end of one? When Bishop Joel Tudman stepped onto the stage that Sunday morning, the air inside the Potter's House felt electric. You could almost feel the shift coming. His recent posts had grown more reflective, his words more deliberate, and his silence louder than ever, as if something monumental was stirring beneath the surface. But no one was ready for what came next. Standing before a packed congregation, Bishop Tudman took the mic with a calm authority that carried both peace and power. His voice was steady, yet every word carried the weight of emotion. He began not with announcements, but with gratitude, thanking Bishop T.D. Jakes for years of mentorship, for believing in him, for shaping his journey. It wasn't just a moment of appreciation, it was the sound of transition, a spiritual passing of the torch that would soon redefine everything the church thought it knew. For those who are unaware, Bishop Tudman had emerged as one of Jakes' most well-known disciples. He was frequently spotted leading significant services, giving stirring sermons at conferences, and speaking on behalf of the younger generation of voices at the Potter's House. The crowd became silent as Tudman then disclosed that God had been igniting something fresh within him. He said that a new season was upon him, one that would transcend the boundaries of the Potter's home. It was a calm but unambiguous statement. He has no plans to leave the ministry, he was making it bigger. He explained that this new path was a divine calling that had been validated by fasting, prayer, and guidance. He informed the congregation that this was not farewell. This is a change, a new era that calls for compliance. The room erupted in emotion at those words. While some sat in stunned quiet, others cried, and yet others cheered. Social media exploded almost soon following the announcement. Videos from the sermon started making the rounds on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Within the religious world, hashtags like #BishopTudman and #TheShift began to gain popularity. Global viewers started making assumptions. Was he starting a church of his own? Did Bishop Jake engineer this change in leadership? Or was there something more sinister going on in the background? The truth may actually be a combination of all three. According to ministry insiders, this move had been discussed for months. According to some, Bishop Tudman felt compelled to create a ministry that could reach individuals outside of conventional church settings and that reflected his distinct voice and vision. Others alluded to a covert reorganization inside the Potter's House leadership, with a number of ministers being urged to establish new ministries under Jake's enterprise's more expansive purview. However, hardly everyone anticipated this, particularly in light of that background. It felt abrupt, even sudden to many. Online, Bishop Tudman's supporters started posting heartfelt letters of gratitude for his years of service, mentoring, and preaching under Jake's direction. Others were perplexed as to why both presidents hadn't jointly acknowledged such a significant change. There was much more conjecture in the days that followed. Snippets of behind-the-scenes discussions were shared by a few insiders who suggested that although Bishop Tudman's choice was supported, it may have been expedited by divine timing and personal revelation rather than deliberate planning. Nevertheless, one thing was evident despite all the commotion. Bishop Tudman had no intention of departing in a fit of rage or controversy. Rather, his message was grounded in intention. He talked about trust over fear, calling over ease, and obedience over comfort. It served as a reminder that changes are frequently misinterpreted until their true significance is revealed, especially in the ministry. Bishop Joel Tudman maintained composure and concentration in the weeks after his statement, even as the internet went into overdrive. Everyone was looking for solutions. He mentioned a new season. What was it? Did he intend to start a new ministry, or was this a more significant issue? Maybe a worldwide campaign that would spread his message outside of the pulpit. As additional details emerged, it became evident that this action was not impulsive. Indeed, according to many close to Bishop Tudman, it was a vision that had been subtly developing for years. Prior to working under Bishop T.D. Jakes, Tudman had a strong desire for leadership with a purpose. His teachings frequently focused on resilience, emotional healing, and personal transformation, themes that spoke to those dealing with everyday hardships. Thus, everything began to make sense when he eventually gave hints about his upcoming chapter. According to Bishop Tudman, he wanted to engage with a generation that didn't feel linked to the conventional church model. His goal was to provide a place where faith and pragmatism could coexist, a location where those who had been harmed, questioned, or ignored by the very system that was supposed to lead them were welcomed. He saw his next step as an extension rather than a change, a ministry model that would include global collaborations, local outreach, and digital influence. Long before this public revelation, Tudman had been building a network of mentors, according to one of his close acquaintances, with the goal of empowering young leaders, entrepreneurs, and creative professionals to live out their religion in all facets of life. He referred to it as a movement rather than a monument, which is arguably the most remarkable aspect of his concept. Just that sentence caused an emotional response on the internet. In celebration of his wish to create something dynamic, ever-evolving, and kingdom-focused rather than stagnant or constrained, fans and followers began using the line as a hashtag. Additionally, it was reported that Bishop Tudman was in negotiations to start a new organization that would include leadership development, education, and faith all under one roof. According to some insiders, he had been secretly engaging with media and business partners to create a platform that would reach individuals well beyond the boundaries of the church. Some conjectured that it would entail publishing, podcasting, and perhaps partnerships with prominent Christian influencers. However, some viewed this daring move as dangerous, while his followers applauded it. It takes fortitude to leave the safety of a prominent pulpit, particularly one as well known as the Potter's House, and not everyone was aware of that type of obedience. Online critics questioned the timing, speculating as to whether Bishop Jake approved of this decision in its entirety or whether conflict was building behind closed doors. Nevertheless, Bishop Tudman's remarks were the same throughout. Above all, he stressed the importance of listening to God's voice. He emphasized to his followers that any genuine calling necessitates a leap of faith and that divine direction frequently entails uncertainty. In a sermon tape that went viral, he once observed, "It's probably not big enough if your next step doesn't scare you." The pulse of this new stage was that line. People who felt stuck or who sensed God calling them to something bigger but were unsure of how to make the leap could relate to this. Additionally, it provided a detailed explanation of Bishop Tudman's actions, stepping from routine into discovery, from comfort into calling. However, one significant question remained unresolved, despite the vision becoming more apparent. What was the opinion of Bishop T.D. Jakes regarding this matter? A lot of people focused on one guy, Bishop T.D. Jakes. When word leaked about Bishop Joel Tudman's move, Tudman had, after all, been considered one of Jake's promising apprentices for years. He was a prominent member of Jake's ministry family because of his fiery preaching style, profound emotional intelligence, and leadership at the Potter's House. As soon as it was announced that Tudman was entering a new season, rumors started to circulate. Was Tudman inspired to take this risky action on his own by something that happened behind the scenes, or was this move planned with Bishop Jake's full support? There was stillness for weeks. Tudman himself stayed silent and courteous about their private discussions, while Bishop Jake refrained from making any public remarks. The internet was just made more active by that stillness. Theories poured into the comments sections. Some thought Jake was helping Tudman become more self-reliant and ready to lead in a different setting. Others murmured that the transfer may have been more difficult than anyone wanted to acknowledge due to internal upheavals inside the Potter household. However, ministry insiders started to provide some insight into the situation. According to people who knew both leaders, Bishop Jake had always pushed his proteges to develop and improve. He felt that talented leaders should be free to follow their own vocations, even if it meant leaving the security of the known. Emotions, however, ran high as with any significant shift in church leadership. Bishop Tudman had congregations attached to him. Unlike other associate pastors, he was unique. People had grown to love him very much. A preacher who could make you cry one moment and then make you yell the next. He had an intimate, sincere, and genuine relationship with the congregation. Bishop Jake's statements were cautious but impactful when he eventually made an indirect reference to the subject at a leadership event. He talked about how each leader must ultimately be allowed to follow their own path, the ways in which calling and covering can coexist despite different approaches. Although he didn't specifically name Tudman, everyone in the room knew who he was talking about. He spoke in an encouraging, even paternal tone, as if he were both proud and moved to witness one of his sons in the ministry venture into uncharted territory. According to multiple insiders close to the Potter's house, Bishop Tudman's shift was prompted by his calling rather than disagreement, but they also acknowledged that time was crucial. A number of the church's leaders had been shifting their roles in order to take on new responsibilities. It's possible that Tudman's announcement only sped up a silent process that was already taking place. That straightforward answer, however, did not satisfy the internet. Commentators started sharing their interpretations on blogs, podcasts, and social media. While some depicted it as a power shift behind the scenes, others presented it as a tranquil, God-ordained release. The concept that what was happening wasn't random led to the term kingdom realignment being popular in Christian circles. It was spiritual, strategic, and perhaps prophetic. It's interesting to note that Bishop Tudman maintained his composure despite these rumors. He didn't answer rumors or conjecture. Rather, he persisted in sharing lessons of purpose, obedience, and faith. He expressed his gratitude to God, his mentors, and everyone who had supported him during his time at the Potter's house in a heartfelt manner on the internet. That attitude was quite telling. It suggested that there was simply alignment and no hostility, regardless of what had happened in private. Many of the naysayers who had attempted to make this time of transition into a time of tension seemed to be silenced by Tudman's post, which read, "When seasons shift, the soil changes too, but it's the same God that gives the increase." A new logo, a new branding color scheme, and mysterious captions on social media, as if the next chapter begins and purpose can't stay confined, are just a few examples of the visible movement that followed Bishop Joel Tudman's announcement. However, despite all the assurance, one question still remained. What was next? What was Bishop Tudman actually planning to build? And how big was this vision going to be? At first, it was unclear what it all meant, but those who had closely followed Tudman saw that something significant was happening behind the scenes, and within weeks, the truth was revealed. Bishop Tudman formally announced the next stage of his ministry, a new project that would combine digital innovation, community empowerment, and spiritual mentoring in a way that had rarely been seen in the traditional church world. Bishop Tudman had been quietly putting together a group of visionaries, creatives, and leaders who shared his passion for making faith real in people's daily lives. The name, simple yet profound, conveyed a sense of movement and transformation. It was more than just a church. It was a network, a hub created to reach believers and seekers across generations, cultures, and continents. It was part ministry, part mentorship network, and part cultural think tank developed to help people bridge the gap between spirituality and real-world success. He wasn't doing it small. Word spread that Tudman's team was already forming alliances with digital platforms, faith-based nonprofits, and community organizations. His vision was to create a place where people didn't just attend services, they experienced purpose. His aim was to complement what the global church was already doing, not to compete with anyone, including the Potter's house, according to some sources, and he was even in negotiations to work with prominent Christian media outlets and leadership coaches to help him reach a wider audience worldwide. In a live stream speech, Tudman addressed his followers directly, outlining the core of his new movement. As the next generation seeks movement, we cannot continue to erect monuments, he stated. The message was clear. The world is changing fast, and the church must move with it, not away from it. That one line resonated with thousands of people watching online, and within hours the video had been reposted by well-known media and ministry figures, shared across platforms, and quoted in blogs. Bishop Tudman was ushering in a new era of ministry that valued substance over spectacle, impact over image, and authenticity over appearance. In a world where many leaders seek platforms, Tudman was urging people back to their mission. This was more than simply a rebranding, it was a reformation. The focus on accessibility, however, was what really made this new chapter stand out. Tudman envisioned a model that could meet people where they were through mentorship communities, digital services, and even mobile gatherings. The idea was to take the message directly to people rather than expecting them to come to a physical building. And here's where the story gets even more interesting. According to those close to the project, Tudman's expansion plan included leadership meetings, entrepreneurial development programs, and wellness initiatives focused on mental and emotional health, areas that are frequently overlooked in traditional church settings. This approach was particularly effective for younger audiences who often feel disconnected from organized religion but still yearn for meaning, belonging, and spiritual growth. The response from the church community was mixed, with some applauding Tudman for his bravery and visionary vision, while others saw it as the logical next step for a man whose ministry had already transcended its previous bounds. He wanted to establish a comprehensive ecosystem for spiritual and personal growth, one that spoke to every aspect of a person's life. Bishop Tudman, however, remained unfazed, making it clear that his mission was not to impress but to impact. Others were more cautious, wondering whether such a broad vision could sustain its spiritual core. Could this new structure remain grounded in biblical principles while engaging culture on a global scale? During this changeover, he made one of his most impactful remarks: "Obedience doesn't always appear ordered." That statement immediately struck a chord with those who were themselves on the brink of change, terrified to leave yet certain that they couldn't remain where they were. Sometimes it looks like faith walking into the unknown. Tudman's decision was already having an impact on the church landscape, and maybe that's why this story got so much attention. It wasn't just about one man quitting a job, it was about a generational shift. A movement of leaders stepping into purpose with courage, trusting that obedience will open doors that comfort never could. Even outside of the church, leadership podcasts and motivational platforms started highlighting his words as a model for transformative growth. Younger pastors started mentioning his story in their sermons, and Christian influencers began discussing the Tudman effect, characterizing it as the courage to change while remaining faithful. Even so, as excitement grew and momentum grew, everyone was still anticipating the official launch event, which was rumored to be a huge gathering that would usher in his new global network. What transpired there would not only define the next chapter of his life, but it might also change the way ministry functions in the digital age. The event had been teased for weeks with mysterious countdowns, behind-the-scenes videos, and subliminal messages that promised something unlike anything the faith world has ever seen before. And when the doors opened both in person and online, it was immediately apparent that Bishop Joel Tudman had been preparing for this moment for a very long time. The day of the official launch finally arrived, and it was nothing short of spectacular. Music filled the air, blending gospel energy with a contemporary edge that spoke directly to a new generation of believers. The launch took place in a sleek, minimalistic, and purposefully different modern auditorium from the grand church sanctuaries most were used to seeing him in. The stage was lit in deep blues and golds, symbolizing transition and divine purpose. The atmosphere was strong yet intensely intimate, and the production was polished but unobtrusive.